and welcome to this FPL 10 players to avoid in Game Week 1 video with me, Holly Shand. If you are new around here, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. Let's get into it. The first player to avoid then is Manchester United's Cristiano Ronaldo. He was among the highest scoring forwards in terms of goals last season. However, there's been a lot of speculation this summer over his future at Manchester United. He's been trying to force a move away, but quite simply, not many teams can afford him, and he doesn't necessarily fit into the modern game, particularly Ten Hag's system as well of pressing. He is getting older now, and that utility simply isn't there anymore. And we have seen Anthony Martial start the season in pre-season really well for Manchester United. I think he's scored 3 goals in 3 games already, and Ten Hag has alluded to the fact that Martial is going to be a big part of his plans this season, so he is staying at Manchester United this season and could potentially start up front in Game Week 1, which means that Ronaldo, who hasn't taken part in any pre-season yet for Manchester United, his status in Game Week 1 remains unknown, so do avoid him in your FPL teams. My next player to avoid is Spurs' Richarlison. I'm absolutely baffled by the fact 15,000 managers have already brought him into their squads ahead of Game Week 1, even though he's suspended. He's got a one-match suspension from the FA for throwing that flare into the crowd at Everton last season. He's obviously moved to Spurs now, and to be honest with you, even if he wasn't suspended for Game Week 1, I'd still be telling you to avoid him. I feel like he's been brought in as cover for Kane or Son if they get injured. There's been speculation that he could take Kulusevski's place on the right wing. I can't see that happening. We've seen him traditionally be a left winger rather than a right winger anyway. And, you know, we've got 5 substitutes in the Premier League this season. Spurs involved in Europe as well. I think Richarlison will be utilised across domestic cup competitions, European competitions, and as a substitute rather than being a certain starter week in, week out in the Premier League. Now, that could change as the season develops if he, you know, starts the season well, but certainly over the opening few game weeks, we're not going to see anything too exciting from Richarlison. The next player on my list to avoid is Fulham's Aleksandar Mitrovic. Now, he came up to the Premier League from the Championship as the highest scoring player in the Championship ever. It was ridiculous the amount of attacking returns he managed. I think it was 43 goals in 46 games, which is phenomenal numbers. So you might be thinking, well, why shouldn't I pick him for my FPL team? But Fulham have one of the worst starts to the fixtures for the season. Liverpool at home in Game Week 1. They've got Arsenal away in Game Week 4. Spurs and Chelsea in Game Week 5 and Game Week 6. So, you know, as much as Mitrovic is a great goal scorer and he does have some pedigree in the Premier League, he's certainly not going to hit the ground running with those fixtures. So in terms of him being an option, I think if you wildcard after Game Week 6, you may well be bringing him in. Hopefully he'll have had a little bit of a price drop and he'll be coming in at 6.4 or 6.3 by that point as well. My next player to avoid is Arsenal's Ben White, and there's a few issues here. I mean, Arsenal have got a great run of fixtures to start the season. However, we have seen Ben White sit out a little bit of pre-season with injuries. He has returned to the pre-season training now, but that does ring some concerns in my mind. I don't like bringing in players that are recovering from injury for sure. And the other thing that we've got to consider is William Saliba was at Marseille on loan last season. He's now back, and he could potentially, Arteta has alluded to the fact that he could potentially be part of the first choice centre-back pairing alongside Gabriel. So that could displace Ben White. So I think if you do want a budget Arsenal defender, you go with Tomiyasu or even with Saliba himself. Just keep an eye on Tomiyasu as well, because he hasn't been able to take part in pre-season yet either because of an injury. He is in a lot of teams, so that's something to keep an eye on, with not many days remaining before the FPL season gets underway. Another player on the injury list is Liverpool's Diogo Jota. Got a bit of a hamstring issue at the moment, and we seem to see a recurrence of these injuries for Jota, which is a bit of a shame. I mean, I was expecting that Jota would potentially be first choice in the Liverpool front 3 as the number 9, especially with Diaz and Salah flanking him. He's not that attractive an option anyway when you're comparing to Diaz, who is more nailed on in the team and obviously 1 million cheaper as well. But we've also seen Darwin Núñez. A lot's been said about avoiding him this pre-season. However, he has scored 4 goals in a pre-season game earlier this week, so that's something to consider as well. I think that means he's kind of staken his case now as being the first choice number 9 in this Liverpool team, which means Jota is even further down the pecking order, so he's an avoid for me. The injury list continues in this list of avoids, and we're expecting Patrick Bamford to return back for Leeds United after an injury that put him out for most of last season. It seemed to be reoccurring as well. He came back and didn't see many minutes and then was out of the team again. So he has got great potential in FPL, but I certainly wouldn't be picking him for game week 1. There's a lot of unknown quantities at Leeds, even though they have got great fixtures to start the season with. But I think given the issues that Bamford's had in the last year, it's far safer to just have a look at him over the first few game weeks and maybe bring him in on the early wild card if you do like what you've seen during the early weeks of the season. Raphinha is a big loss for Leeds United as well, and I know that they are strengthening, but you know, with Phillips out of the equation as well, he's gone to Manchester City. Bamford is not going to have that team around him that he's used to, where we saw him really prevail in the 2020-21 season. So for that reason, he's another avoid. One player who has been quite popular so far for game week 1 is Aston Villa's Philippe Coutinho. He's a player who has got great opening fixtures. Bournemouth and Everton, Crystal Palace in the first 3 certainly sounds attractive. However, my biggest concern with him was his sporadic minutes and his sporadic returns last season. We tended to get a big double-digit haul, you know, a couple of attacking returns in the game and then a series of 2s and 1s and 0s before another big haul. I do not like inconsistent players in FPL. I can see the attraction to being involved in Aston Villa's team for the start of this season, given the fixtures, but I think you're a lot better off if you go with someone like Ollie Watkins or maybe someone like Matty Cash in defence. I think they're going to offer a lot more for us, and with the fact that Lucas Dean is in that Aston Villa side as well, he is going to share set pieces with Coutinho as well, which again diminishes Coutinho's output. We've actually seen Leon Bailey as well have a very, very good start to pre-season, so he's going to be one to keep an eye on, who's significantly cheaper than Coutinho as well. I don't think he's worth the outlay. Now, the second most owned goalkeeper in the game is Liverpool's Alisson Becker, and his credentials show why he's such a good option in FPL. The amount of clean sheets he kept last season were sensational, and we've also got to bear in mind a very good save percentage rate as well. However, we are, spoilt for choice with Liverpool assets this season. I mean, Salah and Trent are in almost every single person's team. We're also looking at the fact that our third Liverpool player could conceivably be Robertson or Diaz or Núñez. So to block off a third Liverpool spot for Alisson just doesn't seem worth it. I think if you go with a premium keeper, Ederson's far better an option because there's less options outfield-wise at Manchester City. I think Edouard Mendy at Chelsea is very good as well at 5 million. So for me, I don't think Alisson is a very good pick in FPL this season, so he's one to avoid. News has come out in the last few days that Aymeric Laporte is unlikely to start game week 1 because he has got an injury. He looked like he could be a good compromise if you were looking to spend a bit more on your attacking players and not go with João Cancelo in defence. However, that option is off the table now, but it does mean that there could be an opening there for Diaz to start every game as well, and potentially John Stones as well. So that's something to keep an eye on. It'll be interesting to see how Manchester City line up in the Community Shield against Liverpool at the weekend to get a bit more knowledge on who their first choice centre-backs are. The trouble with Laporte is he was a great option last season because he was getting consistent starts, consistent minutes and attacking returns as well. So it's a shame that he isn't in the equation here. However, I do think that it could be good news for other Manchester City defenders, even if Laporte is one to avoid. My final player to avoid then is Brentford's Ivan Toney. We did see a massive improvement for Brentford in the latter half of last season with the arrival of Christian Eriksen and also David Raya coming back from injury. Great fixtures long term at the start of the season, but Leicester away and Manchester United at home game week 1 and 2. Not the easiest start on paper, and I do think that with Eriksen out of the equation, it is going to dent the creativity of this Brentford side. He was a massive player for them at the end of last campaign, not just in terms of the attacking returns he delivered, but also, you know, putting defenders off and being able to put balls into the box, and all of that will just really decrease the amount that Toney can provide in this Brentford lineup. So again, it's difficult because there's not many forward options in the game, but Toney right now is one to avoid for me. I hope you found this video useful then. If you have, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments who your top player to avoid will be this season. I'll be back very soon with another video. Bye for now.